Hello and welcome to this webinar on building resilience in a COVID world of work. It's fantastic to have so many people register for this critical topic and so many people attending as well. Resilience is a particularly important topic right now. COVID has been impacting individuals and organisations for some time and will continue to for the foreseeable future. Waiting on things to return to normal presents significant risks. So our challenge as leaders is to consider how we are greeting this new challenge and how we're supporting our team to do the same. So that's what we're going to dive into today, some real practical skills about how we can embrace and adapt to the new norm that's presented to us through the COVID world of work. Before we launch into the details of the webinar, however, we'll cover off a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, to kick off, my name is Anthony Gibbs and I'm the CEO of Centus and I'll be your presenter for today. My background is in psychology, as with many of our team members, and I was drawn to Centus by our mission, which is to change the lives of individuals and organisations for the better every day. We do that through the application of psychology and neuroscience to enhance leadership capability and team connectedness to safety and well-being. So this is a topic that's very close to our core business and something that we're very committed to providing some positive impacts in. The tool we are using for this webinar today is called GoToWebinar. There's a control panel up on the screen here. I'll just take you through a quick walkthrough of how it works. You can collapse and expand that control panel at any time through clicking that orange arrow at the top of the screen. All participants will be muted. However, you can see there's a comment section down below. If you would like to make any comments at any time, please type those comments in and hit send. If it's a comment or a question around general functionality or how to use the tool, Christy will respond. If it's a question around the topic that we're talking about, then I'll do my best to field that question as we work through the webinar together. You can also see there's a handout that can be downloaded. I'd encourage everyone to download that handout. It's a really nice summary of some of the tools that we're going to talk about today. It's an editable PDF as well. So it gives you the opportunity to take some notes as we're going and put some of those thoughts and feedback in. Also, what we will cover, as well as being provided with those particular resources, you'll be provided with an email after this session, which will have a link to the slides and a recording of the webinar as well. So if for whatever reason you don't catch something as we talk through it today, there'll be plenty of opportunity to go back and review the information through the handouts or through the recording that we'll provide after the webinar. So the agenda for today, we'll do a bit of an overview in a moment. We're going to talk about why we're talking about resilience right now. We're going to talk about the 5 practices of resilience. We're going to talk about what good looks like. We'll give a couple of case studies and some practical tools for you to consider in enhancing resilience within your organization. A little bit on why resilience. What we know is that mental health in the workplace is a significant challenge for a number of organisations, and it's not just a COVID thing. It's been a challenge for a number of years. We've got some data here from Safe Work Australia. These are averages across from the years 2012 to 2017. And what this data showed us is that about 6% of all serious workers' compensation claims are due to mental health conditions. That equates to about 7,200 Australians who are compensated for mental health conditions on a yearly basis on average. And interestingly, the average duration and cost of the claim is quite significant for mental health conditions as compared to other claims. So we're talking about an average of 15.3 weeks off work versus an average of 5.5 and a claim difference of 24,500 versus 9,000. If we dig a little bit deeper into the data, we can see that of those claims that are made, 91% of those claims have been attributed to mental health conditions related to the workplace, and about 31% of those have been attributed to work pressure. So a significant challenge for business over the last number of years, but it'll be interesting to see the results that come out of this as we get more data about the impacts of COVID. Certainly what we're finding is from the surveys that we've been running through our webinars is that there's a real perception from safety professionals in the organisations who've been engaging with our webinars that stress is having an impact on employees' safety within the workplace. The challenge that we're also seeing is although 76% of people are saying that it is having a realistic impact on safety, only 44% of people surveyed had put strategies beyond EAP or their typical stress management tools that they provide to employees. Only 44% of them had put additional strategies into place. So there's a lot of risk and hazards around well-being and resilience that aren't necessarily being proactively managed out there in the workforce at the moment. Now, when we speak to people, you get a bit of a sense that a number of people, a number of organisations have been in a bit of a waiting phase. You know, we'll wait till COVID blows over to get things back to normal. You know, it will be normal. It will be back to normal before too long. However, again, when you dig into the data, only about 3% of people could actually see things returning back to normal in the foreseeable future. So of that breakdown of that 3%, 2% said, oh yeah, we should see things back to normal by Christmas, sort of. And then 1% said things will be back to normal before we know it. But a whopping 97% of people said it's going to be at least 12 to 18 months, or perhaps never will things return to normal again. So this new normal, the challenges presented by COVID, the challenges that our employees have been enduring and facing, and we've been enduring and facing for the last 6 months, they're likely to go on. And as we know, and as we're going to talk about, resilience is like a fuel in a tank. You know, we use that fuel to overcome obstacles and challenges and hurdles that are presented to us. But just like our cars, if we're not fueling that resilience up regularly, it does decrease, and it does have an impact on our well-being, but it will also have an impact on our safety as well. A little bit of an interesting quote here from Stanford Center on Stress and Health. And this quote says, it is very clear that a big proportion of safety problems are due to human error, and some of that is related to stress. Life is full of stress. If you're not stressed, you're dead. But the thing about handling stress well is being able to appraise it, react to it appropriately, and put it behind you. You need to be concerned as a manager for the overall health of your employees. And again, that quote is been never more true than at the moment. So this ability to not eradicate stress from our lives, but our ability to see it and handle it and move forward appropriately speaks exactly to what we're talking about when we talk about resilience. We define resilience as our ability to cope with stress, change and challenge, and to bounce back after hardships and adversity. So that's our goal through this webinar, and through the work we do with our partners and clients around resilience, is to give those tools to leaders and to individuals to enable them to bounce back after hardships and adversity. So how do we do that? We're going to talk in a moment about the 5 practices of resilience. But before we do that, I'm going to invite you to join me in a poll, and I'll ask Nivo to whack this up on the screen for us. So the poll's going to ask you, in your organization, what percentage of people do you think that their experiences at work positively impact their well-being? Would you say it's less than 20%, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or more than 80%? So in your organization, what percentage of people do you think feel that their experiences at work positively impact on their well-being? So we've got the results coming in now. We've got about 50% voted. So this is really, you know, do I go to work and do I feel like my resilience has been and my well-being has been eroded as a result of my work, or do I feel energized and recharged as a result of my work? So that's really what we're checking out here. So we've been able to pull some data to benchmark your responses against. We've got about 80% of people who have voted. I might close that out, Nivo, and we'll get the poll back up. So what your responses have told us is that about 13%, believe that, so that's 13% believe it's less than 20%. about 32% between 20 and 40, 28% between 40 and 60, 15 um, believe 60 to 80, and 13% more than 80%. So if you were to break that down, you'd probably say 60, you know, you say about 60% of people, of your samples, about 28% are above that 60% range. So only 28% of people are feeling like well-being work positively contributes to their well-being. It's actually fairly representative of the results that we've found through our survey. So we've got a sample here from about 2,500 employees across 6 industries. And what that data told us is that about 32% of people felt that work negatively impacted on their personal well-being. About 35% said they didn't experience any sort of impact, and about 33% said that work positively impacts on their personal well-being. So what that equates to is that approximately 1 in 3 workers is going home from work across a sample group that we've worked in feeling like they're in a worse state after they've completed a day of work. So a real opportunity for a number of organizations. So how do we start to shift the dial here? How do we get more green results here and less red results for the organizations that we lead? What we're going to encourage you to think about is the tools that you yourself use as a leader to stay recharged and energized around resilience, but what tools you can provide and encourage your people to engage with as well. So we've got a simple model up here that talks to the 5 practices of resilience, and we'll go through those and unpack those together in just a moment. At a high level, the 5 practices that we're going to talk about are active and engaged. So this is about practicing health and well-being behaviors that help promote good mental health and energy. Optimistic and solution focus. So this talks about having cognitive flexibility. Living with purpose talks about the pursuit of meaningful goals. Connected and aware talks about practicing self-awareness and social intelligence and having a sense of belonging. And social citizen talks to practicing kindness and contributing to having greater community connectedness. So we'll unpack these one by one briefly to give you an opportunity to reflect on how effectively you're investing in each of these elements yourself, and also to think about how could you encourage the people that you lead to also invest in these items as well. So we'll kick off by having a look at active and engaged. So active and engaged, again, refers to physical health behaviors that help to put fuel in a tank to improve stress tolerance. So again, if you think about your resilience as being like a tank, a fuel tank for your car, as you address challenges, as you go up and down hurdles or around hurdles, having a lot of resilience fuel in your fuel tank gives you the best chance of responding to those in a positive fashion. So a great place to start is by being active and engaged. Active and engaged, the first 2 key elements here which tie really closely together are physical activity and healthy nutrition. So research shows that eating well and exercising regularly positively influences neurogenesis. So it's the building of new neurons, neuroplasticity. So this improves how existing neurons work and connect, and neurochemistry. So this is a release of neurotransmitters that improve brain function. So again, the quality of fuel and how well we work our bodies really has a significant impact on how well our brain is equipped to deal with challenges that it may be faced with. Another very easy tool that we can implement is controlled breathing. So controlled breathing triggers the parasympathetic response, which lowers stress levels, improves immune system resiliency, and it's referred to as a downstream health benefit. So it's a really excellent tool to be able to take some time every day. It only has to be a couple of minutes to pause and really slow down and think about our breathing. There's plenty of tools and apps on your phone that you can get that help with guided meditation and guided breathing, but we often use box breathing at centers. So that's a tool where you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, hold for 5. in for 5, and you repeat that 5 times. So simply focusing on the breath coming in and the breath coming out is a great way of starting to also refuel that resilience fuel tank. And last but not least is the quality of sleep that you get. So research suggests that sleep helps learning and memory in 2 distinct ways. First, a sleep-deprived person cannot focus attention optimally and therefore has challenges learning efficiently. The second benefit is that sleep itself has a role in consolidation of memory, which is essential for learning new information. So what that basically refers to is if we're not well rested, well slept, when we get new challenges and new obstacles thrown at us, it makes it more difficult sometimes for us to come up with the answers or solutions that are going to enable us to overcome those challenges. So these are some very foundation principles we challenge you to think about and reflect on for your own resilience fuel tank and how you've been investing in those. If we get these foundational pieces right, it actually sets us up really nicely to be really well fueled and really well energized to implement some of these the next round of tools, which are optimistic and solution focused. So optimistic and solution focused talks about having cognitive flexibility and the skills to be able to address challenges and solve problems. And as we heard in the previous section, if we've got good fuel in the tank, if we're well rested, if we're controlling our breathing, our brains actually wire and connect better together, which mean that the ability to solve these problems and have that flexible thinking is actually sped up. It's sped up and it enables us to apply some of the tools that we're going to talk about right now. The first tool, which is a very common tool that we talk about at Centis regularly, is thinking consciously about our locus of control. So individuals with an internal locus of control have a stronger sense of self-responsibility, and they tend to have more likelihood of making steps that change their lives in positive ways. So according to research, adverse consequences from having an external locus of control are heightened levels of intolerance and anxiety, and finally, higher burnout rates. So locus of control, having an internal locus of control, is about constantly asking ourselves the question, what's my 50% in this moment? So what can I think, feel, say, and do to get the best possible outcome in this scenario? Again, if you're interested in this topic, go and unpacking that a little bit more, go to our YouTube channel. There's a great video there, an explainer around the concept of locus of control to go into more depth. The next tool, which is a very useful and practical tool, is the tool of reframing. So reframing is a technique used in therapy to help create a different way of looking at a situation, a person, or a relationship by changing its meaning. So what we often say is that any given circumstance in life is neutral until we put a frame around it. And we can choose our frame. We can choose what we think, feel, say, and do about any given set of circumstances. So the opportunity that presents is if we're conscious about the frames that we're putting around things, we can choose a frame that enables us to be more solution focused and to take greater ownership and have greater empowerment, even though the circumstances we might be faced with might be incredibly challenging. The final tool, which I'd really encourage you to consider, is optimism. So researchers have found that we can rewire our brains to be more positive, creative, resilient, and productive, and see more possibilities when we look for them. So one study actually found that optimism is strongly related to preparedness, such as readiness to deal with setbacks and take advantage of opportunity. So it's a real mindset piece here that that having that internal sense of belief that we can overcome challenges. As you can imagine, if you're well rested, you've been eating well, your resilience tank is already fueled up from a physical perspective, that can have a significant impact on the application of these tools, and vice versa as well. You know, if I have an internal locus of control, I'll be more likely to take ownership of my eating choices and my sleep management, etc., etc. Little tip for optimism: taking some time every day to consciously think about the good things in your life is really powerful. Just to share a personal experience in our family, every day we take some time and we say we won the life lotto. There's so many good things in our life relative to what it could be. So we challenge our children to say, what were the good things that you had today? What were 3 good things that happened today? Let's talk about those. Let's unpack those. So really starting to train ourselves and train our kids um, to focus on what's good in our lives. Again, can be really challenging when we're faced with circumstances like the ones we're faced with in COVID. The next tool to consider is living with purpose. So living with purpose creates a mindset that gives us focus, drive, and a sense of achievement. So living with purpose talks to things like setting goals. So setting small achievable goals on a daily basis, having a mental or sometimes even a physical to-do list means that as we achieve those goals, we get feel-good chemicals such as dopamine and serotonin, which fuel our motivation. And what that means is because we feel like we've got some forward momentum, we become more confident, more optimistic, more self-directed and self-determined. So again, better equipped to overcome challenges because I believe that I've been able to overcome challenges before. A growth mindset has been a topic which has received a lot of attention over the last few years, and it's a really awesome thing, a really awesome concept to explore and unpack a bit further. So a growth mindset refers to when people believe they can improve their intelligence and their potential. So this is all about thinking that in any given set of circumstances, I can get better, I can do better, and an old dog can learn new tricks. So that growth mindset means that where other people would have a fixed mindset and say, "Oh, I can't do that. That's not my skill set. I'm stuck where I'm at." People with the growth mindset are more likely to put in extra time and extra effort, and that leads to a higher sense of achievement. Again, I was blown away by my daughter yesterday, who's now playing 3 sports in the afternoons. And I said, "Oh, why do you like to play all these sports?" She just said, "I just like to learn new things." And every so often you have a moment where you go, "All right, I got something right as a parent." But that's what this is really about. Going out there with a sense of curiosity to better ourselves and to think about what opportunities do we have to grow each day. Again, the fact that you're dialed into this webinar possibly suggests that you've got at least elements of a growth mindset. You're dialing in to go, all right, well, what can I learn that I can potentially invest in to build that growth mindset to build my own resources. And the last one is talks to strengths. So, and this talks to understanding what your strengths are and playing to your strengths. So when people have the opportunity to use their natural strengths, they tend to be happier and more energized, more resilient, less stressed and less prone to burnout. They tend to perform better at work, they feel more energized, they feel more satisfied, and they feel more committed to doing their job. So often, and part of this comes down to how our brains are programmed, we focus on our shortcomings and the things that we're not great at. I'm terrible at Excel spreadsheets and I don't have a lot of energy and focus to put into them. So if I spent all day thinking about and applying my skill sets and thinking to Excel spreadsheets, I would find that my resilience tank would become incredibly drained. I instead choose to focus on things that I'm more energized and more enthusiastic and I've got greater strengths in, and I might find team members to partner up with on projects that require a lot of Excel spreadsheet work, such as my old friend Dazza. So understanding your strengths, understand what your wheelhouse is, and then potentially even engaging with team members to help you get to particular results. If things fall outside your strengths, become a great opportunity for us all. So understanding and playing your strengths and referring back to them regularly is really, really important. The next component of the 5 to consider is connected and aware. So this talks to emotional intelligence that fosters a strong sense of social connection. So this first one here talks to understanding how our social brain works. Our brains, and anyone who's dialed into our webinars before will know this, we are social beings. We connect with other people. We want to be part of the tribe. But there'll be certain things which trigger our own social brains in helpful and hindering ways more than others. And this talks to this self-awareness piece to a certain extent. Status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness are all elements that can either be threat or reward buttons within our social brains. And understanding and being conscious of how our social brain is responding to any given set of circumstances enables us to more effectively process and manage adversities as we encounter them. So again, being conscious that, hey, when there's change afoot, or if I have my status threatened, or if I don't feel connected to other people, I feel this way, enables me to take positive action to address that because I'm self-aware. The other really important part of this, and another really great way to fuel up your resilience fuel tank, is through having great, authentic, supportive conversations and forming genuine connections with other people. When we talk to people about our challenges, when we talk to people about what's going on for us, often the questions and through the process of questioning and having that conversation, the people we're talking to will help us unpack the challenges that we're presented with, and will give us new ideas and new inspiration as to how to attack things, attack that particular challenge. That sense of connection, again, often feeds all those positive relationship types of chemicals that are generated in our brains when we have that sense of connection with others. The next one to consider is the social citizen component. So this talks about connection to values, meaning, and a higher purpose. So we often talk about being clear about what your personal values are, enables us to direct our focus towards things that really matter and that are within our control. So it can be our values, or it might be our personal big five. So the 5 things that are most important to us. So by thinking about the things that are important to us, we can consciously make decisions on a day-to-day basis that helps us be the highest version of ourselves. Contribution and kindness are also significant parts of this concept of social citizenship. So a mounting body of research and evidence shows that having a higher purpose, giving back, even practicing small acts of kindness creates a release of oxytocin, a positive brain chemical. That makes us feel good in the moment. It can have really positive cardiovascular impacts, and it can create a ripple effect, 3 degrees of separation. So thinking about how you can contribute and how you can perform acts of kindness in your own way is really important. And look, this doesn't have to necessarily mean starting up your own charity. It could be small things. Nivo, who helps me facilitate these sessions, he's probably the smilest guy that I know. He consciously goes out and makes an effort to pass on those smiles, and he gets them back in turn. My little contribution is I coach a junior rugby team, and although I might not feel like going there sometimes at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Friday, seeing the impact that you can have on the kids certainly does feed back into that. So your own way of having contribution and kindness will be your way, but thinking about that and thinking about how you can have that sense of input into the community has some real positive resilience benefits for you. So we've covered those 5 components of those 5 practices of resilience. Now we're going to talk about what good looks like, or what good could look like for you within your organization. So imagine this. What would it be like if you're part of an organization that was truly thriving, resilient, and prepared to face whatever opportunities or challenges are thrown its way? An organization that was a front runner for promoting resilience and well-being. An organization where every individual felt they were living life as the best version of themselves. A place where everyone comes to work feeling at their best and full of energy. A workplace where we make choices for our own well-being and the well-being of others. A place where we're committed to achieving balance, growth, connection, and personal and professional excellence. What would that mean for your organization? Well-being is closely linked to health and productivity. Research has shown that employees who are in good physical, mental, and emotional health are more likely to deliver optimal outcomes and performance in the workplace. Healthy and happy employees generally have a better quality of life, a lower risk of disease and injury, increased work productivity, and a greater likelihood of contributing to their communities than employees with poorer well-being. The nature of work is changing, and some of the changes will have a considerable effect on worker well-being. New practices that have been adopted to promote employee well-being include non-standardized working and employment arrangements. Thinking outside the box about what enables people to manage their own resilience and well-being, as well as putting into place work wellness and health promoting programs. So it's a combination of looking at training options and giving people the tools, but also looking at how things are structured. I know a lot of organizations have been forced through COVID to engage in working from home arrangements. Have a think about how as things have sort of, and we're talking outside of Victoria, really feeling for Victoria at the moment, but as life starts to return to a level of normality, or as people are able to go back into their offices, how has your organisation responded to that? Have they adapted or adopted to the new working from home, the benefits of working from home, or is there a strong push to get everyone back into the office as soon as possible? What are the benefits and implications of either of those decisions? So again, as we continue to unpack what good looks like, there will be particular things which are taxing your people's resilience that it's worth being conscious of. So it's much easier to deal with challenges if we're consciously aware of what they are. So the typical things that we see taxing team members and people in organizations at the moment is job security. This is a huge one. If we don't have a sense that we are secure in our role, this has huge impacts for psychological safety and resilience and workplace relationships, a bunch of different factors. So people need a sense of job security as a foundational piece of building resilience. Financial security is another huge one. It's had a big impact for a number of people for COVID who've been maybe stood down or had reduced work hours. Those financial impacts that will be having a work flow on effect at work. So how do we give people financial security, or give them access to resources that enable them to build that financial security? Get a number of EAP services and alike provide financial counselling services. Health, as we've spoken about before, if people have got health concerns, that becomes a huge distraction for people and a huge challenge to overcome. And finally, relationships. So typically, these are the factors that we see taxing people's resilience. So there are a number of things that we can do as organizations to support people through what are very normal life challenges. We've probably all had situations where maybe we didn't feel as secure as we could in our job, or we've come across financial challenges, or we've been hit with that out of the blue with a health challenge, or we've had issues or challenges with our key relationships in our life. What we can do as a workplace is provide us a stable and supportive relationship as we possibly, stable and supportive environment as we possibly can. So we've provided a model here that can help you consider how you invest in a wellbeing culture within your organization. So it breaks up the wellbeing culture into these 5 areas. So a couple of questions to reflect on. In relation to individuals, do individuals feel a sense of achievement in their role, and are they empowered to seek assistance when needed? So this speaks largely to, do I feel like I've got some sense of autonomy and empowerment to make decisions on a day-to-day basis whilst having the support and backing of my leader? In terms of the job component, does the design of my job enable me to feel like I've got meaning and purpose in my work? So again, this will link back largely to be able to achieve goals and feel like I'm progressing in my role. Do I feel like my job contributes to the organization in a positive way? Has my organization made an effort to link to a greater or a higher vision and purpose for that organization that people feel proud to be connected with. The next one talks about teams. Are team members strongly connected in order to assist and support each other? So again, have we fostered an environment where people feel like they can talk to one another, share challenges, and overcome them together? Next one talks to leaders. Are leaders cultivating high quality relationships with their teams? So how connected do I feel with my leader? Do I feel like I can work with them as a team, or do I feel like they're simply my boss? Do I feel like they've got my back when it comes to challenging circumstances? And lastly is organization. Does the organization's environment and practices support and facilitate employee engagement? So again, this can talk through anything such as the physical environment, but it might also talk about the way that employment is set up. Is there some flexibility in people's roles? You know, if I want to leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday to go and coach my child's rugby side, do I have the ability to do that? Does my organization give that level of flexibility? So again, there's heaps of opportunities to consider, particularly as we're continuing to deal with and manage the circumstances surrounding COVID. So just reflecting on this model for a wellbeing culture, I'd like to run a quick poll. Which of the following does your business currently invest in the most? So I'll ask Nivo to chuck that up. Does it invest in the individual as per that definition, the job, the team, the leader, or the organization? Where's the greatest investment that we typically see? So we've got those votes rolling in at the moment. Great, so we've got about 60% voted. Great, 65. Just a couple of questions here while they're coming in. So I've got Lee Harold who's asked for some recommendations on books for building resilience. There's a great book on called The Corporate Athlete, I think it's called, Lee, which I think speaks to a lot of the concepts and tools that we talk to. And Brad Close, I think, Brad, were you at Centis at one stage, mate? He said that James Niven is a great man. I couldn't agree more. So we might close that poll out, Nivo, and we'll see what's come through. So what we've got is by far the most significant investment has been in that organization component. So that's thinking about creating an environment and practices that facilitate an employee's engagement. That's fantastic. That's great to hear. And a lot lower. So the lowest investment was in the individual component, and then a mixed bag between fairly similar results for job, team, and leader. Okay, so some great self-reflection there. So some practical steps that we can take to start to drive a resilient culture. So the first one here is look at how we can commit and execute to a comprehensive strategy that goes beyond EAP, the fruit basket, and yoga. So I'll jump in, I'll give you some examples of some case studies here, just out of interest. So this case study is about a company called NextJump. It's a $2 billion e-commerce company with about 200 employees, headquartered in New York City with a bunch of other satellite offices. They've got a philosophy that they guide their culture against. Better me, improve yourself. Better you, help others with what you learned equals a better us. So excellent. So it's all about that growth mindset starting to come into play here. What they did is they had health and wellness as one of their core foundational principles of the business. They offered help in all aspects of health and fitness in particular, so focusing on tools that could help people manage energy, nutrition, and mental health. And the result of this investment has been that they've seen annual sales growth from 30% to 120%. And they've attributed that significantly to their investment in people. So again, if you scratch under the hood a little bit, NextJump's a little bit different. So unlike most companies, Jump's primary concern wasn't about getting the healthcare costs down. The demographic of their employees was largely under 30 computer engineers. So they were actually using these resilience type of tools as a lever to actually get better performance out of their workforce. So they wanted to get better attraction and retention and happier employees, more productivity, and they did that through giving physical fitness and nutrition, access to physical fitness and nutrition resources, and they also provided training and tools for energy management and stress reduction. So they've seen a huge return on investment for that particular impact. Another very famous organization that many of you will no doubt be aware, and the CEO who unfortunately has, I think, recently passed, Herb Keller, he focused heavily on resilience and culture as being one of the key drivers of organizational outcomes. So Herb Keller was one of the most transformative leaders. For those of you who aren't aware of him, he was repeatedly voted the best CEO in the airline industry, and some would argue the best CEO in America. One of the key drivers of Keller's leadership is that he would always put employees first. So his theory was we put employees first, and then Southwest's success was largely attributed to the commitment and motivation of those employees. So it had a flow-on effect. So from the very beginning, Herb drove that through the culture of his employees, and therefore that tended to cascade into employees going above and beyond to take care of customers. And that again creates that reciprocity. So Keller never believed that the discipline necessary to run an on-time airline was mutually exclusive with having fantastic service. So he believed they worked hand in hand. So this is what he said about his organization. The business of business is people, yesterday, today, and forever. And as among employees, shareholders, customers, we decide that our internal customers, our employees, came first. The synergy, in our opinion, is simple. Honor, respect, care for, protect, and reward your employees, regardless of title or position. And in turn, they will treat you and external customers in a warm, in a caring, and in a hospitable way. This causes external customers to return, thus bringing joy to shareholders. So you could see that he was sort of looking at a virtuous circle kind of concept here by focusing on what he could control or could influence most. That is to create the best experience for the people that worked for Southwest. So what an inspirational vision that he had. The next thing to consider is invest in your leaders. All the research indicates that the level of resiliency that employees often experience and the strength of a wellbeing culture is most strongly connected to the leadership within an organization. And our own research supports this. So when we measure safety culture within organizations, we look at the 8 dimensions of safety leadership, and we look at the relationship of strong leadership to a number of different organizational levers. And in fact, from this particular sample, so this is a sample taken from one of our resources, what I actually found is across the nearly 12,000 participants surveyed in 7 industries, so industrial services, agriculture, utilities, education, oil and gas, manufacturing, and mining, is that the strongest relationship existed between well-being and strong safety leadership. So strong safety leadership where you've got transactional and transformational leaders in place. So by investing in your safety leadership, the byproduct will also be stronger well-being within organizations. And as we heard about earlier, organizations and individuals who feel like they've got less are more likely to have the cognitive load required in order to be able to deal with the challenges that they're addressed with. So those perceptions of leaders is incredibly important. Building your leadership capability and commitment to well-being is huge. So perceptions of leaders' commitment to well-being and safety also was a strong lever for that overall cultural performance. The last component to consider here is consciously going out to create space for resilience. Resilience isn't a one and done type of set of circumstances. Often organizations will make the mistake of, oh, we'll run some yoga classes and put a fruit bowl out, or we might run a one-off resilience program and we'll get the result. What we're asking people to do when we look at these 5 principles is we're essentially asking people or asking ourselves to embed new habits, to have a new way of thinking and approaching life that becomes enduring. So it's important when we consider rolling out a resilience or a wellbeing initiative across our organizations, how are we going to reinforce the concepts and the tools that we've spoken about? So what we'll often challenge organizations to think about using our toolkit, so we provide a bunch of tools and resources to individuals and organizations, is how do we refer back to those tools within the existing meeting structures and processes that we've got in place to continue to draw attention back to these critical elements. It might be simply a safety or well-being share at the start of a meeting. It might be the use of our well-being cards where we have a short question that people can discuss for 5 minutes during a meeting. It might be prompts during our pre-start meetings or toolbox talks. It might be asking people through your in-field interactions or your general conversations as leaders with team members how they're feeling and what resilience tools and practices that they've been applying to get through these periods. But thinking through not only the training component, but how we support and reinforce these concepts is of real critical importance. And I encourage everyone to consider that if you're looking at a resilience program in your business. So we're getting towards the end of the session. So if you've got questions, I'll invite you to start to put them into the questions section. I'll curate them in just a moment. But a bit of a summary. So with COVID impacting on workplaces and our communities, there's an urgent call. Now's the time to really start to give your people some tools and skills around resilience. We did a refresher at Cenis just on Monday of some of these tools, and the feedback that we've had within a business that does this all day, every day, it was a really timely reminder and a really good opportunity to reflect. So how obvious are you making these resilience tools to your people? Invest in resilience. It's a crucial part of safety. So if you think that that resilience isn't having the resilience of your people isn't having an impact on safety, it will be. The cognitive load that people are going to be carrying at the moment is huge. So giving them the tools to clear that and to focus on managing the risks in the field becomes really important. The difference between good results and great results is often dependent on the leader and the leader's demonstration of active care. So thinking, do your leaders have the ability and the resources, the mindset to support a resilient culture? And then these 3 things to consider a resilient culture. So create a clear, create a commitment to execute on a comprehensive plan, invest in your leaders' capability, and again, create space for that resilience. So again, I'll invite you to start to put a couple of questions in the chat box and I'll curate them in just a moment. As we're doing that, we've got a new offer that we'd like to make available to anyone that's dialing in or either live or listening to this recording. We've had huge success, as many of you will be aware, of our intensive leadership program. Had a bunch of different people and cohorts coming through. We've now applied the same thinking to our Leading Resilience Masterclass. So this is an opportunity to join a bunch of your peers from other organizations online to become a change agent for resilience within your organization. It's a fairly small commitment with a huge payout. So we're talking about 3 90-minute webinars with a bunch of supporting resources that sit along beside that. The resources and recordings are made available. So if you can't make it to a session for whatever reason, you will have access to those, but we do encourage you to attend because often the richness comes in your ability to have those live conversations with your peers from other organizations. So the program overview, what we'll be covering is the neuroscience of resilience. We'll be talking about how to create a culture of well-being and resilience, and we'll be talking about how to navigate change and adversity. So there's some really useful tips and tricks to be able to apply. So if you are interested in that webinar, Nivo's going to put the poll up on the screen now. All you have to do is click yes, and he'll give you a call and check in with you to see if to see if we can get you registered. So let us know. Great. So they're just starting to come in. All right. Well, thank you. I'll just leave those open for a second more, James, and I'll start to cover off on some of the questions that have come through. So, Will Heath, yes, you will be provided a copy to the presentation after this, so we'll send that through. We've got one here from Alicia. So she says the research shows, and what I find, if there are workplace factors, org job change, insecurities, poor leadership, etc., resilience practice focused on the individual won't have such a great effect on overall staff mental health and the bottom dollar. Is an important component of staff well-being, supportive leadership, and a commitment to organizational leadership and systems is a key and very complex. Look, Alicia, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. And it's a little bit of a chicken and egg concept sometimes. Where do you start in relation to those challenges? And I'll slide back up to the diagram we had here, where we've got organization, individual, job, team, and leader. I agree that if all these other factors are completely out of whack, focusing simply on the individual probably isn't going to get you the result that you're looking for. So in those instances, the challenge is, well, where do we make the most meaningful impact next? And that's where often, understanding the antecedents or the drivers of your current outcomes becomes really useful. What I will say, however, is unless you've got some sort of leadership vision and commitment to drive that change, to do something different, to get a different result, it makes all the other factors become very, very difficult. So I think I agree, all those factors will have an impact, but if we can get our leaders aligned, then what we can tend to find is that those other factors will start to fall into place more naturally. So get those leaders aligned, get those leaders educated, look at how they can support their teams is really, really a good place to start. The best ways of investing in leaders' capability is a question from James. Look, the funny thing is about these resilience and wellbeing tools, James, is it's not necessarily something that a lot of leaders have been taught. You might have been engaged in some sort of management training, or you might have picked things up from your leader, but this is a relatively new movement. Thinking about how we support our people in challenging times isn't necessarily a natural thing that a lot of leaders do, and it's certainly not something that many leaders have been provided the skills to do. So we have a program that we run called Supporting, where we are supporting, it's a supporting leaders program, which basically is how do you have a supportive conversation. There's a free resource kit available on our website, James. So, and for anyone who would like to, you can go and download that resource. And as a starting point, it gives some fantastic tools and considerations that you can start to talk to your leaders about as to how they can have supporting conversations with their people. There's also a webinar I ran at the start of COVID around supporting conversations. So you can also download that. I think that's available on the website. And you can dig into that, and there's a bunch of really good coaching and practical tools that you can use in there as well. So that's one that you can consider. What is a 5-minute resilience toolkit tool that can be added to a team meeting? Again, go to our website. We've got some free resilience tools on there, but it might be something as simple, Lisa, as taking some time at the start. We've got some prompt cards in there where we have a quick description of a concept or a tool around resilience, and we just ask people to have a conversation. Something that we often do at Centres is at the start of a meeting, we have a resilience and wellbeing share. So it might be where we get people to talk about a resilience or wellbeing hazard that they've come across recently, so they can share it with other people. Or alternatively, it might be about a win, an investment that they've recently made with the goal of inspiring and engaging other people. So you can download that tool from our website again for free and make it available for you. All right, great. Some heaps of questions rolling through. Got another one from James. If there was someone I saw was visibly stressed, what is the best approach in your opinion? Look, that supportive conversations tools and webinar, James, you're going to find exceptionally useful. But the worst thing you can possibly do, I would suggest, is ignore it. And that's what I tend to see a lot of people do. Oh, that person's not doing so well, head down, look to the floor. As you'll see in that webinar and through that tool, obviously thinking about your environment, drawing them into a space where they can have a confidential conversation with you is really important. Remember, it's not your job as a leader to fix the problem. It's your job as a leader to give them the opportunity to talk about the challenges and experiences that they're having and to guide them towards the appropriate support that the organization can provide them. And that appropriate support might be an EAP type of service. It might be encouraging them and supporting them to go to their doctor. It might also be looking at their working arrangements or their hours, or giving them the time to address the challenges that they've got. So again, I encourage you again to download those resources and they'll be useful. Yes, the recording is available, Michelle, not a problem. Brad, will be in touch soon, mate. That's great. More than Alicia, more a comment than a question. It was a good comment though, and definitely worth reinforcing. And I've got one here from Adam. Are there tips or tools available for helping people that have multiple factors impacting their well-being? Work pressure is one, but outside issues, challenges are compounding those impacts. Oh, look, 100%, Adam. So again, the role as a leader, often work will be like when people aren't going so great, it often becomes the easiest thing to blame work for all your woes and all of your challenges. It's in those circumstances that we have the opportunity as leaders to meet with people, hear what's going on for them, encourage them to think about all the factors that may be contributing to those circumstances, and empower them and encourage them to take proactive steps to address them, or at least reactive steps in some circumstances. So again, not your job to be a counselor, but it might be your job to create the space for them to get counseling, or to create the space for them, all the time for them to be able to go and deal with the challenges and the circumstances that they're dealing with. So in some ways, you're nearly a referrer and an agent for supporting that change. And of course, that relationship with a leader is so important. And we saw this in terms of the earlier research, if I feel that my leader is supportive, if I feel that my leader cares about me, if I feel that my leader is committed to my well-being, that in itself has huge steps to helping people in terms of managing their own resilience and well-being. So the fact that even you're showing that you care is a great starting point. And again, I refer you back to that supportive conversations tool on our website. It's got some other cracking tips and tricks and useful resources that you can pull on. All right, I'm just screening through here. I think I've covered most questions and we're about out of time. So again, thank you so much for taking this time to invest in your own, in yourself and therefore your people when it comes to resilience. I encourage you, take the resources we've provided, take the ideas we've provided and act as change agents within your organization. Those conversations, those small things that you may choose to implement, you might never know the huge impact it can have on someone's life. So it's a critical role that you're playing as leaders. And there might be someone struggling out there who, through giving them the tools and access to these resources, it makes all the difference. So again, thank you for joining. Thank you for investing the time, and I hope to see you in the intensive program soon. Thanks and take care.